a.m. Join Tom Busby's free Telegram at dtitrader.com/Telegram to keep up with market events. And of course, as always, we're welcoming in our YouTube audience. Want to say good morning to everybody over there. If you want to join in, go to dtitrader.com/YouTube and you'll see Tom Busby's YouTube page. The live event should be up and running. Train and Trade is live. Just go ahead and click over to that. Click like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And of course, feel free to say good morning in the chat room. All right. Now, risk disclaimer there is a very high degree of risk involved in trading. You and you alone will be responsible for all the trading decisions you make. Do so smartly. Understand where your current financial position is, where you want to get to, what risk you're willing to accept to do so. Always consider risk when considering how you're going to trade. Past performance, not indicative of future results. And let's go in here. Crude opened today at 96.67. They have moved up. Overnight high, new high for this week, 101.85. That remains the high through the first part of the morning. Iran always an issue, or at least has been for the past month or so. This week, there are 3 days left in April. Tomorrow, we've got the FOMC and earnings Wednesday after the bell. Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, and Google. And I think Apple comes up a little bit later in the week. I think that might be Thursday. So be sure to check your earnings key levels. Last night, the S&P futures traded up to a new all-time high at 72.23 quarter. They closed Friday at 71.95.50, and they opened this week at 71.85. Currently, we're below all of those numbers. Now, Tom, your opinion. You mentioned Apple doing a little bit of a counter trend, and I guess we're going to look at that a little bit later when we go to live trading. But what are you seeing with this pullback? Is it a concern at all?
Everything, obviously everything's always a concern when you're trading, but I felt like looking at the market this morning, it'd be a slow bleed type day, and that's exactly what's happening. If you look at some of these tickers, they are pulling back, profit taking setting in, that kind of stuff. But if you stand back and look at it, and look at where we opened the month at, and where we opened the week at, and then where we are right now, you sort of get the feeling that this is short-lived. However, I do think the market is starting to show a little discomfort in the negotiation side of Iran. These radicals that we're dealing with are dug in. And they know for a fact that we're not going to agree to no nuclear bombs in the future. And I think that when you see stuff like that, that brings people back to the reality of we have a situation. And how do you handle that situation? I think the blockade has been a tremendous success. And the only question is, will they resume military operations? And I think that's what crude is sort of, trying to tell you based on, the tweets or the posts last night. They're expecting maybe we're going to get a change in tactics, okay? Or will we just keep sweating them? And I think there's a couple ways you can go. I think we're getting comfortable with the fact that the blockade seems to be the middle of the road approach to take, but you really should start seeing a crack in the financial side of Iran. If they're losing 473 million a day, you got an endless hole there every day that goes by.
I always find
it. But you're dealing with nuts.
Yeah, I always find it interesting, Tom. You got to balance the hypothetical of what might be happening with Iran and the reality of what we are seeing in earnings. And we've seen over the course of this month that the reality is earnings are showing an incredibly strong market. Like that hypothetical is scary, but the reality is something else. And balancing those two things is always tough for a trader. You have to look at what is and what could be.
Yeah, and Chuck, at the end of the day, we can all see a brighter future once this
Hmm.
thing's over. And, that gets into when do we think it'll be over, because you're sitting there looking at it and you're saying to yourself, okay, what are we going to do? Now, because we are on a pause here on trade day, and I posted that this morning, anytime I use the word patience or patience will pay, I'm probably not going to trade a lot on those days. I might do some premium capture, I might do some longer term trades, but generally speaking, this is about observing what happens and how it reflects itself in the actual numbers. And I got a couple comments when we go live there.
Right. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead and share those slides. But even with that uncertainty in the market that creates a little bit of chaos, Tom, January through April, 120 closed trades, 95 winners, 24 losers, one break even, 79% accuracy rate. I'd say whatever happens next, you're doing a pretty good job of keeping up with it. So I'm gonna keep up with that Telegram channel and figure out what you're saying next because it looks like it's been working pretty well.
Well, people know that's been with me for a long time that I don't take trades just for the show off. I take trades when the odds are in my favor. And when I go into a watching stage like this, then all of a sudden the situation will change and I'll rapid fire off plenty of trades. So, 120 closed trades since the first of the year. That's a pretty active advisory, I would think, overall, when you think about it.
Yeah, and if you guys want to find out how Tom goes through that process, hey, the first real great opportunity for that's probably going to be the annual Sawgrass Workshop coming up May 31st through June 2nd. We got a picture of the previous class in there. We're looking forward to replacing that coming up this summer. Hope to see a lot of you guys from that picture joining us in May or early June. Let's see, we've got the team, Jeff, Tom, and Jonathan will be there. I'll be there as well this time around. And what's covered? Sunday night meet and greet, Monday night reception, live trading, stocks, options, and futures. How to use probabilities to take bigger gains, smaller losses, how each day offers an opportunity, but not just one opportunity, but many. 10 questions you should ask yourself before entering any trade, and how to find stock opportunities each day of the week. Make sure that they are opportunities that fit your goals and what you're looking at. Show you how to establish a solid plan that helps you achieve your goals each week in the market. So, those are going to be the highlight items of what we cover. And starting out off, Tom, day one, meet and greet with cocktails and appetizers. And that is going to be, that is at Sawgrass, right? The meet and greet.
Yep, everything's held there at the Players Club, and I
Mm-hmm.
think the first night will be a lot of pictures because if you've never been there before, what a venue to have it at. It's really beautiful, and
Yeah.
the sloping greens around. It's really like a vacation. Plus, the
Yeah.
meals are outstanding.
Especially that time of year, May and June, flowers blooming, everything just poking up. It's definitely spring at Sawgrass.
Butterflies and rainbows, my friend.
There you
Butterflies and
go.
rainbows.
And then we get into it day two as the market is coming online. We get breakfast before the market, and then heading in 9 to 12, strategy, education, and live trading. We'll take a lunch break from 12 to 1. Strategy, education, and live trading that afternoon. And then Monday night, VIP cocktail reception and dinner. And as you said, everything at Sawgrass. So if you missed it on Sunday night, you have the chance to take a picture of it again on Monday night. And by the way, you get fed pretty well as we go through that. So bring your appetites. Day three starts with breakfast. We get the live trading, lunch, and then strategy education and live trading. That'll be on Tuesday. Tuesday's trade day. So get ready for an active day there as you get put all the theories into practice. And we'll be doing that throughout the week, but you'll be able to follow along on this day too, given that day three education. The venue is TPC at Sawgrass, and you can see the beautiful buildings, the golf course, and of course the classroom in these pictures. And that Sawgrass event, if you'd like to attend and join us, $997 go to dtitrader.com/sawgrass annual workshop. Looking to fill up that room, just a few extra seats remaining. So if you're sitting out wondering, hey, contact Kelly, contact Jeffrey, contact DTI. Let us know that you're interested in doing that. You can call at 904-706-3532 or simply go online to dtitrader.com/sawgrass. Now let's get into it, Tom. We got your books up here, Roadmap to the Markets plus the trilogy, all available at Amazon.com. Complimentary audiobook for winning the day trading game, dtitrader.com/WDTG. We have online public resources. Certainly recommend you go and visit these sites. Earningswhispers.com in the heart of earnings season, very important website. Forex Factory and Econo Day, that lets us keep abreast of the news. These are going to become a little bit more important Thursday morning as you see that news come out. And then, of course, information from the exchanges. So you can know things like over at the Eurex site, know that May 1st, Friday, May 1st, European markets are going to be closed. So European markets will open the month of May a little bit later. That might affect the way things go into the weekend. Just keep that in the back of your mind. More resources over at DTI. We try to make as much resources as we can available to you guys. The white paper booklet, dtitrader.com/WP. Tom's YouTube page, where we got a nice crowd in there today. We got let's see, I got a couple people logging in, a couple names that I don't recognize. So good to see everybody there. It looks like Tara and Caddis. So great to see you guys. Options EDU penalty tape. Tom's BNN interview. That Options Education Resource site. If you're coming to Sawgrass, or even if you're not, take a few moments to go through that site. Obviously, after the presentation today, but take a few moments to go through there. It will kind of give you an idea of some of the things that we will be covering in that class, so you can do a little bit of homework in advance before you come down, be a little bit more familiar with how to place trades. Now we got the April FTD stocks, and I'm going to see if I can bring Jonathan in at this point, because I know he really wants to show you some of the live events here, but we'll start with the FTD stocks. And as I'm waiting for him to come in, I'm going to go ahead and click over to that site, and he'll pick up at some point here. But just looking through, as much as the markets have pulled back a little bit, you'll notice that we're still long on a lot of this. And this is from the early days of April. So this is not really that big of a shock, but you'll look through and see a couple of these markets showing shorts, a few more showing shorts than what we had been seeing. And that gives you an idea of what sort of a pullback we're looking at. You can also kind of go through and say, well, where is that weakness in the market? And, you know, I look at the indices, Tom, so I can tell you the Dow and the Russell have not been great performers today. But I will also tell you, given that they were some of the stronger performers in the early part of the year, the Russell and the Dow still well above the year open. You mentioned that a little bit earlier, that perspective, the year open, the week open, the month open. And when we get to May, we'll also be looking at the quarter open. So this April open is going to stick with us for a little bit. But the markets progress, they move forward. And I just want to look through here. You mentioned Apple earlier. Where is Apple on this list? Here we go. Apple showing that you're long 271.09. That was updated at 11:17 a.m. So that one's still looking good. And really, the Mag 7, let's see, is this it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I'm going to throw in a whole bunch there. The one that kind of looks a little bit off, Tesla. You mentioned Tesla. The current 376.44. Need to get back above that 383.14, which was the FTD high. But these tech stocks in particular, Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, Nvidia, some of them pulling back a little bit today, Tom, but still aggressively strong. we've been looking at this, and quite frankly, a little bit of profit taking at some point as you're nearing the end of the month. It's not really that big of a surprise. And I think Jonathan's going to be taking.
Yeah, Jonathan's going to take over. What do you got in mind, Jonathan? I'd like to look at a couple things myself, since you're live with the market.
You want to go live? Okay, let's go live.
Yeah, let's go live before we get into art of making money. I think people will love it, but let's go live and bring up the E-mini, if you will.
Should be
All right,
showing a
this morning-
30-minute chart.
Yeah, draw where I put the pivot number, 7205. Now I posted that this morning, and I just want to point out a couple things. Does everybody see the if you come over there and look at, I believe that's X bar, right, Jonathan? X bar, that high there.
The X bar from yesterday was right here.
No, I said, okay, come over to this morning. I said X, right there. Everybody see that bar?
Yeah, that's the X bar from today.
Yeah, if you look at that bar, when I saw the negative X bar, okay, I said the market is pausing, meaning the market is trying to little profit taking there. And I knew that pretty early in the morning, especially if you go back to RB2, which is again the first sign, and then you got a follow through on that X bar. So I said, hand off the mouse while I'm waiting. But notice also, if you will, the market made lower lows down to the low that we went, which was what, 71 what on that low, that green bar low, what was it?
45 or so.
Yeah, about 45. And then it rallied for the opening of the day. And then you go to RB3. Look at RB3. Sideways on RB3, and then it broke RB3 and we started going down. So since this is Genesis and we're trading about here, if you're saying, well, will the market recover, then you got to put a higher high in on some bar after RB3. Now we know that Genesis starts in 8 minutes. And so if you get higher than Genesis, then you're going to see this market, I think, trade back up to the top of RB3. What's that, 71.90, something like that? The high there, 71.90?
Yeah, interestingly, the high of RB3 is just shy of your pivot yesterday. We talk all the time. It's not just a pivot for the day. Keep track of them during the week. They can help you.
Right. They're good pivots. Those are good numbers. So if you look at that, the market is in, let's call it profit taking, whatever you want to call it, but it's no time to go out there and say, hey, let me buy this call option on the index. Now, I want you to bring up Intel. I've got a big position in Intel, and I'm going to define what I look for on Intel, because I know a lot of you have Intel. But if you come out to Intel, you will notice that Intel, I'm sort of defining, you put 79 as support, down at 79, and 87 is once it gets above 87, it's going to go higher. So those two, there's Intel. And then in between that, I'm thinking big pictures. This is where I would go out, not to this week or next week. I would go out to July and give myself time for this market, because it's still bullish. Put the daily up after they see that. But well, let me say one more thing. So the range is 79 to 87. That is Intel, which is 8 points. And so 8 points tells you that if Intel gets above 83 to 84, then it starts resuming an upward basis. But I definitely want to say it holds 79. Now do a daily, Jonathan. Do a daily. Okay. If you look at the first day of earnings, and what's the range on that day, Jonathan? where you had to gap up right there. Where's that range?
Yeah, made a high of 85.25 and low of around 79.5.
Yeah, so 79 is a big number for support. And so then you made a new high, followed by today you've got a down market in Intel. But here's what you have on Intel. Draw the opening price of the day, which was I think 81. Let me give it to you, 81.28. Okay. So Intel is sort of trading to the downside, but it hadn't traded enough to the downside for me to do some different strategy other than trying to accumulate it. Okay. Now, I mentioned Apple, Jonathan, and I said Apple, I could tell early this morning, let's put Apple up there on the 30 minute. Now, if you look at Apple, Apple is made a new high during RB3, but we're trading inside RB3. Now do a daily on Apple, if you will. Notice today on Apple, it's higher than yesterday, and Apple's trying to poke its head and go higher. That's why I added it to my Magic 5 this morning and gave you a 270.55 pivot number. And right now it's 270.80, but that's why Apple made the list today. Apple has given every sign that it wants to try to go higher. Now, where would it tell me to go higher? Well, you got to get above today's opening, which is 272.55, a number I didn't have when I posted the pivot number at 70.55. So write that number down. 72.55 brings about an attack on 275 for Apple. So Apple is sort of out there. Other stocks I've checked, that's NVIDIA and MU and some of those stocks, it's my opinion that they're just correcting along with the general E-mini. And so I think that's something that I wanted to point out to you in a live market. And Jonathan, you wanted to be live to showing how to set alerts, right, for both the Tasty Trade before we go back to teaching the art of trading.
Yeah, I can
do
definitely
that now, or you want to do it later?
We can do it now, and you can set alerts. I'll go ahead and show you alerts in Roadmap too, since that's available.
Yeah, why don't you show that? And then when you finish that, we'll go back to our slides.
All right, inside Roadmap, if you click on Launch, there is a price alerts right here under Launch. All the categories and features are in alphabetical order, so whatever drop down you click on, just search in alphabetical order. Launch, price alerts. Click New once that box opens up. Let's see, Tom's number on Apple was 272.55, so we'll type in Apple, all caps, last greater than or equal to 272.55. I'll click OK, and if that goes off, Roadmap's going to start making a noise at me, assuming my sound is on. Now, if you set some alerts and your Roadmap starts making noise at you, you can't find it, just go back into Launch Price Alerts, and you'll have an indication here on what it is. And you can either right-click on the alert to delete it that way, or if you just can't find the alert, you might just click Delete All and delete all open chart alerts. Just wipe everything. If you can't find the alert, just wipe everything and go reset alerts as needed after that. So quickly how to set alerts on the Roadmap. Let's go over to Tasty Trade. Over on Tasty Trade, I've got the SPY open right now, but let's stick with Apple. I'll change the ticker to Apple. Now, the way you set alert on Tasty Trade is once you're on that stock, over here to the top right, there's an arrow pointing to the left. And this is the desktop platform for Tasty Trade. I don't know. It's probably something similar to set alerts on the web, but I don't use the web, so I can't show you that. But desktop platform, click the arrow pointing to the left at the top right of your platform. That opens up this, but probably it was on the overview tab maybe by default. You want to click on the bell along the vertical menu bar here. And when you do that, switches over to the alert screen. Then it's pretty straightforward from there. You can see I've got Tom's 10 tickers for the week alert set here. But what you want to do, you'll make sure your symbol is correct. Apple's fine. Last is fine. You can choose last bid or ask greater than 272.55. Now the price has to go above 272.55 for Apple to the alert to go off. But after I click to create alert, you can see a new line opened up for Apple greater than 272.55. Any questions on that? Let's go over to Thinkorswim real quick. Thinkorswim, it's a little bit easier, in my opinion, on setting alerts, a little bit more straightforward. If you're on a chart or if you're on the chart, you can just right click on the chart and there's from the drop down menu, there's a create alert. If you're on the trade tab like this, you can just right click on the price out here to the right of the ticker. And again, there's a create alert. So it's very clear. It has a little bell there for you, extra indication of what you're doing. Click create alert and a window pops up. I think you can see that. And you can then, it's pretty straightforward from there. The mark at or above 272.55, create alert, and there your alert is created. Any questions on setting alerts on the roadmap, setting alerts on tastytrade, and setting alerts on Thinkorswim? All right. Any questions? Yeah, I will post the slides here again in just a moment. We have a question, a reminder of how to check the alerts on roadmap. If your roadmap is making a noise at you, click in the launch, go to price alerts, and it should tell you here. You can check log and charts, see if there's anything going off on a specific chart. But again, the fail safe is if you can't find the alert on roadmap, just hit delete all and then I'll do that for you. Hit delete all open chart alerts. And at that point, your roadmap will stop making a noise at you. And you might have to go in and set a new alert. But again, that's just kind of like a fail safe if you can't find the alert. All right, Tom, let's go back to the presentation. Today, you wanted to talk about the art of making money.
That's always a favorite topic among myself and others. But we've been teaching the art of trading since 1996, a long time. And we pretty well have a process that we use. And as you see by the track record that we're able to post, it's second to none because it's based on odds of making a good trade. Different strategies will apply. And we teach that through our education process. But I find that sometimes we assume you know how to use what we give you. So today I wanted to break it down and I wanted to focus on the Magic 5, which is in our TNT. I post it every morning. 5 stocks that I look at that I might go to decide to take a trade. And then, of course, the top 10 tickers. Let's go through that. This morning, we were in a pause situation. I said, well, the QQQ would have to go above 663.55 and the SPY above 715 for me to get serious about getting long some calls. I'm talking about in the index. I did post Apple at 270.55. MU was correcting down, and I said, well, if it got above 525, I'd consider taking it a dance. And then Intel, I got a lot of Intel long. I said, well, where would I buy more? Well, if it got above 85.11, I'd buy more. So that's the actual stock itself. And so I laid that out there. And now this is where using the compass chart will tell you how to apply this. First of all, I want you to write this down. You set alerts at the trigger price. Okay, and we showed you how to do that through going live on Thinkorswim or tastytrade. But just because you set an alert doesn't mean I'm plowing in. What I want to do is find a situation that when the alert goes off, the controlling reference bar is positive. So what is the controlling reference bar at 11:34 in the morning? You tell me. What do we call it? The controlling reference bar. What do we call it? Genesis. And so if you look at Genesis, what am I looking for? I'm looking for a higher high over the next 30 minutes, which would throw the pivot numbers I gave you from this morning in play. Well, clearly the QQQ is not going to be in play. The SPY is not going to be in play. Intel is not going to be in play, not when it's trading at 82, 81.80. The one that is in play is Apple. It is now, Apple is, let me find it, 270.29. So above 270.55 in a controlling positive Genesis bar, then I revert to, do I buy the stock, number one, or do I go and buy some type of delta? Let's talk about that. I say learn delta 50 through delta 10. Well, if the general market is below my daily pivot, then I'm probably more than likely are not going to use a delta 50. I might use a delta 10 or delta 20 if the general market, okay, is below the pivot. Well, with the S&P, looking at the S&P right now, it's at 71.48. Is it below the pivot? Give me a yes or no. Yes. So I would be down at either a delta 10 or delta 20 if I'm higher on Genesis for Apple and I'm above 270.55. So looking, I probably, based on what I'm seeing today, I'd probably do a delta 10, okay? And that's the way I would look at it, okay? That's how I go from delta 10 to delta 50, okay? On plays inside the Magic 5. So first, set an alert at the trigger price. Second, decide whether you have a positive controlling reference bar, right? Third, choose either buy the stock or use a delta based on how strong the market is. Well, the market's not strong, it's weak. So I'd be down there at delta 10 on an Apple play. Does everybody see that? That's a great example. Nothing else is close. That'd be the only one I'd look at. And so what I wanted to do is take the time and show you the value that's put out there every day. Every day when I post the Magic 5 and how to use it. Any questions about what I just told you? And Wendy had asked me that question and I gave her a general answer. This is a specific answer. Carol asked, doesn't Apple have earnings this week? Yeah, on Thursday. I'm not planning on staying with this thing to marry it. I'm planning on trading it. Neil says, do I spread my deltas or buy single call if long? In this case, Neil, I'm focused on a single call. This is not a long-term play that I'm taking right here. This is a calculated play on today. Okay? So
lots of great bonus insights that you gave there, Tom. I'm going to go back through and get those added to the slides, but just a little bit about Delta, some basics. Of course, Delta tells us roughly how much the option will move, given a $1 move in the underlying stock. So if we test ourselves here, let's say Apple makes a real nice run today, maybe it moves 5 points. If you bought a Delta 10 option, how much would you make? If the underlying stock moves 5 points and you bought a Delta 10 option, how much would you make? $50 per contract. That's right. That's right. How about 20? About a 20 Delta. If the stock moves 5 points, how much would a Delta 20 pay you? Twice that, right? 100. Let's skip Delta 30, Delta 40. How about Delta 50? If a stock moves 5 points, how much would a Delta 50 option pay you? That's right, $250. 5 times 0.5, $250. All right, so everybody's good on Delta. Now, does everybody know how to add Delta to your platform? We showed you how to set price alerts a moment ago. We can go back and show you how to set Delta very quickly. We can show you how to do Delta on your platform. I've actually got slides that show this, all right, but I'll go through slides. If anyone needs additional support live, we can do that too. But on Thinkorswim, you can see it's color coded. First, you need to be on the trade tab and all products. And you see that up here at the top. If you use Thinkorswim, you're very familiar with this. Trade tab on the top row, underneath that, all products on the second row. Once you do that, you have an option chain here. You need to be on a spread type set to single, okay? So I know some people like to look at spreads and you change the actual strategy to spread, but make sure you're on the single options. And then out here to the right is kind of your I guess you can say strategy set, your data set. I think by default it's set to last and net change. You can click on that, and from the choices here, quick choices, there's Delta, all your Greeks. So you can just click on that. You could also alternatively click on customize your set. And if you do that, if you click on that, a little menu pops up and you can choose what data points you want on your Thinkorswim here. Some great customization from Thinkorswim. Any questions on that? All right, now Tasty Trade, it's a little bit different, but at the top of your Tasty Trade option chain, you have data points that have a little dot out to the left. Those are the ones you can change. Notice the bid and the ask do not have dots, so you cannot change the bid and the ask, but anything to the left of that on the call side or to the right of that on the put side, if it has a dot, you can change it. When you click on that header box, the one with the dot, you get a drop down. And very clearly from the drop down, there's Delta listed. And that'll add Delta to your Tasty Trade platform. And it should work very similarly, I would think, on the web, but I'm not sure. Any questions on Tasty Trade? All right, Tom walked through this on entering, but here's a good checklist. And again, I'm going to add those extra insights that Tom had in a little bit. Probably after the session, I can go back and listen to the recording, get them all added. But here's 3 that you definitely need to be aware of. Getting into the Magic 5 or the 10 tickers, the most obvious is the stock needs to get above the trigger price, right? That's step 1. Step 2, you also need to be above the most recent reference bar. Tom mentioned the Genesis bar forming right now. And step 3 is you don't want to enter right before the reference bar. So when we went live for Training Trade, it was 11 a.m. Now at 11 a.m., the next reference bar comes along at 11:30, just a half hour or less until then. So truly, unless you're trying to scalp the market, which we wouldn't recommend, you're going to need to wait until that next reference bar comes along. So these are 3 good steps for entry. And again, I'll add the extra insights that Tom added earlier. I'll get them to the slide in a little bit. Step 4, of course, anytime you're trading, you got to know when you're wrong. And that is where the reference bar technique comes in. Here's a good graphic, a nice simple graphic of this. So we have a blue reference bar. We get long above the reference bar. And of course, the stop goes below the reference bar. So trigger long above the reference bar high. Your stop should go below the reference bar low. Very simple graphic here. Does everybody understand? Anybody have questions?
Now, I will add, for E-mini NASDAQ futures, this is a great technique. But if you're trading options, what I do, depending on the time of entry, if it's in that first hour, I'd use the RB low of the cash market then. But if that's at 12 o'clock, I got 2 pieces of information now, don't I? So I could use the low RB RB3 and RBY, Genesis, to set my stop for an option. Okay, and there's a big difference there because futures will respond and options sometimes are a little slower to respond, but the information's the same. You got a technique to judge early on whether or not, by using the reference bars, whether you're right or wrong. For example, let's go back to that Apple thing I told you. I would take Apple if I went long, and I would say the low of the day. If I go look at the low of the day on Apple and just give it to you, we're talking Apple, is the low of the day is 268.66. If I went long Apple with an option, I'd use 268.40, telling me, hey, I'm just wrong trying to go long Apple today. Does everybody understand the technique I'm using? Let the market dictate where that stop's going to go. Okay. And very simple. I look over at Apple. It's above my 250 or 270.55. It's not, I'm just looking at 270, but it's above that. I got a positive reference bar. I'm long. Now, where am I wrong on Apple? Well, it had to make a new low today. Or I would default to my 72 hours. So now not only do I know where I'm entering, hey, I know when I make a mistake early on. It's all based on that price and that price action that we get. Why we're so successful? Because these techniques that we're showing you now, you will see and play out in anything that we do. All the reference bars around the 24-hour market are right there. We give it away. I guess we could be real secretive and say, hey, we got an unbelievable track record. You got to spend money to give it to us. My desire is for everybody to be successful, and those that are stubborn to eventually join us. I call them stubborn because without the roadmap, if you don't have the roadmap, you're just stubborn in my mind. You're not thinking, in my mind, you're not thinking, hey, I like to trade when the odds are in my favor. That's my thoughts. I'm pretty biased on that. Now, let's talk about setting targets. We call it the 3 T's of trading. Generally speaking, it's a percentage basis. I try to take anywhere from as low as 10% to 25%, phase 1. Phase 2 would be 25 to 40, and phase 3 or trend would be, 80% or more. But anyway, you want to feed yourself if you got the timing right, because what that'll do for you is teach you to have confidence when you trade. The second target 2 and target 3, get a little bit more advanced. But the good news is the way we do it with our strategies, we're shooting usually for 20% just to put wins on the board to build your confidence.
All right, any questions on all this? Again, I'll get the bonus insights added, both sets of bonus insights. Yeah, that's it, trading multiple contracts, Sean, that's right.
Even for a small account, I would do 2 contracts if you're a small account. Because you're not going to make any money trading 1 and 2 contracts. You got to get up to where you're putting $1,000 on the line. You're not going to lose $1,000 not if you use these techniques, okay? But you want to make money, you have to put some money out there, I see a lot of people, they'll make 20 trades doing 1 lots or 2 lots, and their account will be up a few $100 when it could be up 1,000. You got to take risks to get rewarded.
And Tom, you designed an automated system that really thrives in markets that move around the reference bars. It's called Orion Trade Alerts.
Yeah, there's no better sidekick than Orion, because what Orion's going to do for you is going to give you numbers, trades, and keep you on the right side of that trend. It's a pretty active approach, but at least you're not sitting there in your regular portfolio or anything else. If this thing's got all red, you say, hey, maybe I ought to go do a little hedging here, right? Anyway, I'm just throwing that out there. But a wonderful price here, $19.95. You got your little sidekick. Think about this. How many trade hours are there in the week? Anybody know how many trade hours you got? In a week, how many trade hours you got? Well, you got 24 a day that starts on Sunday night. Orion is a workhorse. If you got 24 hours a day, Sunday through Friday, think of it this way. You're getting a lifetime membership. You're down to pennies on the dollar when you're trading to have this sidekick working for you. We call it Orion. That's the way I would think about it. You'll cross-check what you really think. If you're all long and it's all red, I'd go with Orion.
Tom, I know we have some folks here that maybe this is the first time seeing Orion. We've got a detailed video I can play to learn
Don't
about.
you play it, let him sit and listen up, join Orion. This is something that puts everything together. Anytime you get a pick out of Orion, you know it was vetted all the way through the DTI process. Yeah, it's pretty good. The mini-me, so to speak.